Hey, everybody, welcome back to Outspoken Men's Edition. Here we go, another episode, Joe. Today, I kind of wanted to start it off by going over some of the statistics that they have with different age groups of men. So, at what age are you considered a man, right? Like 18? That's what it's,
I don't know. I think that's yes. I think in different cultures it could be a little bit
yeah.
lower, like 16,
And
even
then
15. But here in America,
18, but
probably about
then they
18.
consider, you're not fully like adult man until you're 35 ish. That's why, I mean,
Well, I
this
know
is all
like yeah, but I know like for insurance basis, you're 26 is
right,
the
right. 26 is
adult,
when your
right?
insurance goes, or 20, is it 25 or 26? It's one of the two.
Well, it could be 25. I'm not.
And
Yeah,
then
it's
you
one of
can't
the
be
two.
president until you're 35. So, and why did they do
Yeah.
that? Because life lessons aren't learned for, the first little bit of life. You're learning stuff from your parents, and then you learn a little in school, then you got to learn a little out on your own with,
Well, if that's the case, I better lift that age to
I
like
know,
60
right? I mean,
for
gosh, we're
president.
still well, they're making it 90 at this point. But yeah, so something that I found that was really uh sad and interesting was there's
Hmm.
two age groups of men. So between the age of, and this is horrible to think of, between the age of 10 and 14, and then it jumps up to 25 to 34. Those two age groups, the number two killer of boys in those age groups, and I'm just going to say boys because that's too young for, is, what do you think it is? It's self eradication. So from 10 to, yes,
At that
sir,
age,
10 to
10 to
14.
14.
Yeah. 10 to
That's
14.
horrible. That just
Right.
tells you how far gone this country has gone down.
Yeah. And the thing is
You
that's
know,
little boys,
and
not little girls. That's not a,
well, yeah, but that's the expectation. Here's the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. The expectations of a boy are much. I'm speaking as a father now. The expectations of a boy are much greater than the expectations of a little girl. Like my little girl, she's my little princess. And we've talked about this in the past. My little princess, she's gonna be protected. I'm not gonna spank her, right? But my boys, you spank them. You got to get up early in the morning. Let's go out there, start picking weeds, and you know, you're developing a man. You're trying to make them men to survive in this world, right? To know things, to protect their little sister, so when they get married, they protect their spouses. And it's a learned behavior, or it's a taught behavior. It's an environmental thing that as parents we teach our children. You do it in hopes that, and here's the thing, this is the bad part about it as a parent, and it goes down and you could ask, I could feel safe saying this. Like, you could ask any parent. No one comes and tells you this is how you raise a
right.
child, or this
Yeah.
is how you do it. Or read Dr. Spock's book on how to raise. None of these things really function. They might not work for you. They might work for someone else, but they might not work for you and how you were raised. Right? You absorb everything that was used on you to in turn then use those tools to teach your own. And does that make it right, or is it correct? Maybe not. I was thinking I was doing a good job with my kids, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't break enough chains from my father's cycle to me to make a larger impact on my children. I don't know. And the problem is you won't know until they're in that age group, the one of the two that you just mentioned, right? I feel that lower age group could do a lot with bullying, a lot with just other things that are uh, causing so much chaos in our society today, right? There's bullying, there's people with transgender that they're feeding our children all kinds
Oh
of stuff
yeah.
and confusing them, and there's so much things in the schools nowadays that could be a direct impact to their mental health, right? And with so many laws protecting the schools and the student and keeping the parents away, it's so difficult for
Right.
parents to deal with. um so it's, man, being a parent today is not easy. Being a parent 30 years ago wasn't easy. um it's just so difficult. And at what point do you start changing? At what point do you say, man, that didn't really work? It's too late. By the time you realize that that way that you raise your child was not the correct way or the best way, they're adults already.
Right.
It's too late now. You can't fix that, but you only hope that in turn they fix it, and it's but again, will it happen? Probably not because it's a cycle. Like I thought the same thing. I'm not gonna be like my dad. My dad was too crazy, and then I'd be like, and there was still some glimpses of my dad in me in raising my kids. So it's a dangerous thing. Let me tell you, and especially, and here's the thing, and I think this is where I failed and for those of you out here right now listening, again, we try not to make this religious or any kind of way, but it's hard not to when it comes to dealing with some of our mental health issues. But I think if we stick to more biblical ways of raising our children and instill more religion in our children, I don't think it would be as difficult. And I think that would be a bigger impact on a correct way of raising
Yeah.
our children. You know what I mean? And not so stern or not so like macho. This is it. You're going to be a man, and this is what you do. You fix brakes, you fix cars, you cut the grass. I don't know. I did a southern accent with all that. Um, but you do these things and you protect your daughter. So but that's crazy. Those stats are crazy to me because one, children at that age of 10 to 14 should their difficulties should be like what cartoon to watch, what
Right.
cereal to eat, things that we had problems with, like am I having chorizo and eggs this morning or am I having potatoes, or not it's not about whether I'm going to eradicate
Yeah.
myself or not. I mean, how hard is it? Like, is it the essay? Is it what is it that's causing these things?
Well, here's
I
an
can't fathom it.
here's
What's
another
it say on there?
interesting stat to kind of go along with it. So this is what I find interesting so that's the stats for the actuality of it actually happening, right? Um,
Hmm, hmm.
so when you take overall, this has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with female versus male in thoughts of
Okay,
self eradication. Not that they completed, but they think about it. And this is a study that was
okay.
done.
Not don't follow through then. Just they think
Correct.
about doing it.
So the percent
Okay,
in females is 5.3. The percent in males is 5.0. So women actually think about it more, slightly more, and men are way more doing it than females. So the
the
follow through,
follow through.
the
Yeah, more
age
follow through
group
on
that
it
is thinking about it the most are 18 to 25-year-olds.
in men.
Well, this is all age groups put together,
Oh, I'm sorry,
encompassing
encompassing
everything.
everything.
So
18 to
18 to
25.
25. So,
So
and these are
those
people only thinking about it, not doing it, thinking about it. So you think about the,
those seem to be almost the adult
that's
transitional
correct.
period. Eight,
Yep. So if you start to, and it drops off pretty far because you're at 13%, 13.6%, I'm sorry, 18 to 25-year-old. Then when you hit 26 to 49, 5.5%. When you hit 50 plus, 2.4%. At that point, you figure you're at the downhill slide anyway.
it's
So
gonna happen.
yeah,
It's gonna happen.
yeah.
It's gonna happen in a few years anyway.
We're
Let
on
a
the
natural
downhill
course
slide. We're
take
not going to
place.
even think about that anymore. So by that time, yeah. So
That's
by
so
that
sad.
time, you've actually come below the percentage of what males and females think about in a regular deal. So when you jump over to very specific between men and women, so I'll put this chart up on the screen here. So when you talk about like I'm going to go down the line of females first. So Hispanic females, and this is actually self-eradicating, actually doing it. And this is just in
Hmm.
all manners. There's different ways: suffocation pills, you know, firearms, all kinds of different way. Whatever they consider like hanging and stuff like that. It's all suffocation of drowning yourself, whatever. Hispanic females, okay, uh, would be 3%, or I'm sorry, 3 out of every 100,000. White women 7.5 out of every 100,000. Black 3.3, and Asian 4.1. Where do you think men lie in that?
Wow.
So Hispanic females
Uh,
3, Hispanic males 12.5. White
Wow.
women, 7.5. White men, 30.
Wow, that's
Black
a
women,
crazy.
3.3. Black men, 14.8. Asian females, 4.1. Males, 10.5. So if you average it all together, um, or added or whatever, women are about 13.5 per 100,000. Men are at almost 44 per 100,000.
With the biggest
With
being white
by
males.
far, yeah, 44 is the total, and white men make up 30
30
of that.
percent of that. That is
So,
crazy. And you know what? It's crazy the stats and difference. Some are 4 or 5 times higher than
mhm.
women. And it's crazy to me. But when you look at today's society and what's happening in today's society, it's not shocking to see white males being up there very high. I really don't. I hate to say that, but the reality of things is things have been gotten so much more difficult for white males in our society today with all the racism that's going on towards them. And so these are things and burdens they carry. So I think these stats are going to get worse, honestly, at least right now.
Yeah, and again, men are typically, I mean, and this is not. I love when they keep bringing up the whole toxic masculinity thing, right? Yeah,
There's no such
and
thing. No such thing.
and you want men to be like men in society, right? You want women to be like women in society.
Yeah.
Is there some crossover? Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with that. None of us find anything wrong with that, right? But we have we are very powerful in our specific gender roles, right? There's a book I read years ago called I forget what it was, Run with Your Strengths, or I think it was just Run with Your Strengths. And the whole idea behind it was kind of like in Japan, what they do with their young students. So when they're in, and forgive me, I don't know the exact uh, grades and how it translates to our grades and everything, but let's say like in eighth grade, they start testing those kids going into basically like in high school, and they see where they're good at things. Maybe they're really good at math. Maybe they're really good at, whatever. So
Like
proficiency
proficiency
type
tests.
test, right? And they take whatever they're strong at and they really push them in that. They teach them other stuff, but they really push them in that direction because they're good at it. Probably because they enjoy it more, because it's not a struggle for them, and they don't get where they're like, oh, I hate doing this. You ask any adult, were you good in math? Oh, I was great in math. What are you doing as a career? And what do you, well, it's probably something that kind of, fits in that category. How were you in math in school? I was terrible at it. I couldn't stand math. I wasn't good and everything. They probably didn't pursue that kind of career. But the thing is, yeah.
I avoid
So,
it.
and this is for everything, sciences and reading, and, and some people are better at arts than others. I mean, you were in football. I was in band. Was there a couple guys on the team that sucked? Yeah, and
Yeah,
there always is. In band, we had
there
people
was.
that were like,
Yep.
why do we even give them an instrument? They don't want to be here. They don't like to play, but they picked an activity, right? Because they had to fill an elective or whatever, and they thought, oh, this will be an easy one. I'll just get an A all the way through it. Well, they didn't, and they wasted a bunch of time in school where they could have been learning something else. Maybe they would have been better in basketball or better at something else.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is that uh, especially as males, you have this whole desire to be really good and to delve deep into whatever you do. So it's one of the reasons why so many guys play video games nowadays, because here's a big thing with it. And there's probably guys out there that are going to go, I don't play video games or whatever. Well, you're probably on a level where you feel pretty good with your life, your career, all those kind of things. What is one of the things we as guys, and you and I have said this before, when you get into a position at any job, what's one of the things you do? You work your way up, you move up, you
You master
master
it.
your
You master
craft.
it and
Yep.
keep
You
going.
become a supervisor and manager, and, and that's what we want to do. We want to go up the, the different levels. Okay.
Corporate
Well, the
ladder per
younger
se.
generations, and even guys in their mids, 30, 40, hitting 50, they're not being able to do that because, you know, everything, the work environment is completely changing, right? And they're not able to do that. So they delve into video games. Why? Because you can play something, whether it's first person shooter stuff or multiplayer online games or whatever, and you level up. And it's just something that's in here that we need to feel like we're progressing every day. We're not still stuck in the same slump. And that's what causes depression with guys, is that they feel like they're not going anywhere, they're not doing anything, they're not progressing. You know, you think about it, and I'm not just, this is for anybody. And I would ask this question: when you were at your last job and you were trying to move, and and you're trying to apply and everything, how did it feel when you weren't able to get where you wanted to go? It bums you out. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I've left companies because younger age when because they wouldn't promote me and I'd see that they'd promote
Dum dums, yeah,
dum
you're like,
dums.
"Bye."
Um
Yeah,
Yeah, I left. I'm like, well, clearly they don't value
right,
my work, and I value my work because I'm a hard worker. Where this guy sits around and just
right,
delegates and doesn't do his job. So I'm like, well, I'm out of here. Clearly, it's
yeah,
not a good company to work for. But I
yeah,
100% agree with you because we've known each other forever, and you know that we've both always progressed in
yeah,
our careers in jobs. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it's now that you put it into perspective, that makes a lot of sense. Though you're right, about the video games and things like that, and leveling up and whatnot. But that so many men go through so many things though, because you have that same idea or mentality at home, like with your spouses. When you're at home and you feel like it's not progressing or that you're just fighting a losing battle, and that causes a lot of depression. And men want to be at peace. Men we're not. How's the word I'm looking for? We're not really. We don't ask for a lot. I think stereotypically, men are shown like, oh, they're so needy. They need this. They need that. And honestly, we really don't. I think like a lot of men are happy with going home and being at peace at home because
that's
that's your
number
castle,
one.
right? That's a man's that's your man's castle and is his home. And when you get home, you don't want to deal with all the stuff that is going on over there. That's why you know um, you have that partner at home to deal with all the smaller issues. Now, I'm not saying they're insignificant, but you already had a days full of stress and dealing with people and dealing with different attitudes, just like
Mm,
you would at home, right?
yeah,
And I think when you get home and you want that peace and you don't find it, or you can't find that balance, people get stressed out. Most so that most of you probably saw that commercial we just had for this episode, and one of the questions was, "Who do you call when you're at your lowest?" And Jay, who do you call when you're at your lowest?
nobody.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and I'm the same way, and
yeah.
that's the honest
I mean,
truth.
because
The
of
other,
this series, and because we've been friends for so long, and we're on the same
oh yeah,
page. I think, but we said this at another episode too. It's been very recent that we've been telling each other a lot more, and
absolutely. We
we had
never did. We always,
we had
yeah,
Lizzie Moon on here on, what was it, our second episode, and she asked straight
yeah,
up. She was like, "So do you guys say 'I love you' to each other, or do you give each other a hug?" And we do, and that's one thing that I think has been,
we do.
you know, um, such a,
Broke down those
yeah,
barriers for us.
and years ago. I mean, this has been way before we started the whole uh,
Yeah,
YouTube podcasting thing. So, uh,
yeah.
but we have really tried to grow into this ourselves because, listen, this is like an epidemic for men, that we don't discuss things,
We don't.
and
We don't.
you know, ask any woman in your life, as a man or as a female that's out there watching this. Wow, he didn't tell me that. Oh, I don't even know what's going on. Guys are completely different from females when it comes to informational kind of things. We're really, you know, we're on our own. For little small example. So you and I, we go over to some friend's house. The guy's there and we're like, "Hey, where's your wife at?" And he's like, "Oh, she's in the hospital right now." "Oh, man, that sucks. Hope there's everything's okay. If you need anything, let us know." So next
Yeah.
day, we're back at, we're hanging out with a female friend or something, and we say, "Oh yeah, we were at, Mark's house or whatever, and his wife's in the hospital." What's the first thing that happens? Well, what happened? Why is she in there? How long is she going to be there? What did the doctor say? We don't know any of that stuff because we don't ask those questions, right? Like, and the thing is,
Yeah.
if I had went there by myself and I came back and told you, "Oh man, Mark's girlfriend or wife or whatever is in the hospital," you'd be like, "Oh man, that sucks. Is he okay? Does he need anything?" And we might ask, "Do you know what happened?" No, I didn't ask him. I didn't want to get into that with him. And that's the thing, is that we are private in our own lives. We don't want to
Yeah.
barge into other people's lives either, Cuz here's as most guys, I can't say this for everybody, but for most guys, we don't want to be nosy, pushy, or any of that kind of stuff. If I ask Joe,
No.
you say something happened and I'm like, "Is everything okay?" You're like, "Yeah, yeah, everything's cool." That's where it kind of stops, because if he wants to tell me more, he will. If he doesn't, I'm not going to barge into that whole deal. Um, but now with this series, I'd be like, "Well, is everything okay, brother? I mean, do you need to talk about it?" Or, and you kind of like, you may not barge in, but you're opening that door a little bit more to make it easier for that person to conversate with you. So, the,
Well, yeah, and you made it, but here you just made a great point, and let me just add to that. As a man, you kind of stand your ground. You're like, I'm a man. I don't need nobody. But when someone asks you, "Hey, do you need something? You okay?" You know, you said it opens that
mhm,
door that where me, I feel like, okay, you know what? He sounds like he's
right.
genuinely interested in what's going on, and I feel like I could just tell him a little bit more. And it starts
And
like that.
right.
You tell him just a little bit, and then the other person
Yeah.
then starts, well, I've had something like that similar happen to me, or hey, well, how can I help you? And then you start feeling a little bit more comfortable. But you're right; it absolutely is correct. It usually, and men read other men. Men can't read women for shit. I'm
No,
tell you that right
not at
now. We
all.
can't read women for nothing. But we could read other men like that. And when when someone's genuinely asking, "Are you okay?" Or if they're like, "Hey, you good?" Like, "Yeah, good." Like,
Yeah.
you just keep it going, the momentum. You don't want to ruin that moment because the guy's just asking as a guy, "Dude, you good? You good, bro?" You know what I mean? And not
Right.
really genuinely asking, "Are
Yeah.
you okay?" You know what I mean? And there's a big difference. And that's a great point that you made, because we are
Yeah.
wired that way. And it's really hard to, and that goes to what I was talking about earlier about who do you call?
Ghostbusters.
As men, we don't call anybody. Go dun-dun-dun-dun. So it's funny because most recently I had to make this decision. My job is very demanding, as you know. I don't have any days off. It's kind of weird. Um, it was my daughter's
Mm,
birthday, and I've missed so many of
right.
them already. Um, and I'm like, I got to make it right. One, I'm forking the bill, so I I got to at
Gotta
least
show up.
present myself once. Got to show up once. And I was really like worried about it. Like, I was stressing about it because like I can't like jeopardize my job for a party. You have to balance things. As much as you
Right.
want to be there, it's a party at the end of the day. And I told my baby mama about, like, yeah, blah blah blah. I told her, and even my daughter knew about it because it was like a surprise, not surprise party. And she
She
thought we were
didn't
just
know it
getting
was
all
coming.
together, with no, she didn't. Uncle Jay, she was surprised. She see how
Yeah.
excited she was
She's
when
like,
she
"The
saw you?
homeless guy is here."
Uh, yeah, yeah. She was. I didn't say that. I'm like, yeah, don't lie now. But anyway,
That's funny.
um, it was funny because during that whole time, like, my daughter's like, "Dad, don't get in trouble with work. If you can't make it, I understand. That's fine.
Mm,
Don't do it." And I'm like, and as a man, right? I'm like,
right.
don't worry about it. I got it. Like, I
That's
don't
right.
want her to worry.
That's right.
That's my little
Yep,
girl.
I
What?
know.
I don't
I
want her to
When
worry.
you
You
just
know what I mean?
said that, I felt it. I know exactly where you're at on that, because we all
Yeah,
had, yeah.
yeah. And then her mom, she's all, "Hey, Joe, don't get in trouble for it. Don't if it's not worth don't it's not worth it. That's your job. Don't if you can make a day,
Right.
great. Don't worry about it. Don't." And I'm like, I'm like, "Psh." hey, I got to figure it out. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. And hang up. And what did I do? I'm sitting there stressing, like, man, how am I
Right.
going to do this? I have, I don't want to get in trouble, So this is our normal. This is what we do all the time. We play it off like, oh, you're good. We're fine. Don't worry about it. But I even told you, I'm like, bro, I don't even
Yeah,
know how I'm going to do
yeah.
this. Right? How many
And you
times
know
did I tell
what?
you that? I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do
I
this.
was praying for you that and it's funny that
Oh,
next day when you called, I was
baby
like,
Jesus was
"Yep."
on my side.
How it worked out where,
Yeah.
it's just yeah,
Worked
it
out
did. It worked
perfect,
out.
right? But ladies and gentlemen, that's the
Yep.
faith side right there. That's baby Jesus at work. But it worked out perfectly. And so but again, that's the role we always played. And I sat back and I was thinking about that. I'm like, huh, we do that
Yeah.
all the time. Why do we do that? Now you think about it, and again, you don't want to worry your kids about
Right.
insignificant things that they don't need
Right.
to worry about. They have their own lives to worry about, you know? And then my ex, I don't want to worry her either. Like she doesn't need to worry about that. She has to worry about
Right.
food for that event, for all kinds of other stuff. And on
She was
top of that, she has
stressed
to worry
enough as
about
it was, dude.
oh. But you know what? At the end, I'm looking at the pictures. That was a happy mama.
Yeah,
She was
man.
happy. She was happy because we were all there together. And I think that's the big, I think in general, it's always stressful because that look. You know her look. It's the same look whenever she's cooking or doing something. She's got that look like, get out of here. I'm going to stab you. Right. That's that. But, you know,
With an ice pick.
that's her. That's how we roll. In the
Frozen ice
eyeballs.
pick as cold as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But as it
Oh
turned
man,
out,
it
it was a
was
great party. We had a
amazing.
great time. And but these are the roles that we play. We never ever allow ourselves or our emotions to go past our wall.
Right.
You know what I mean? No one
Right.
needs to know that. And that's something that we've keep continue to talk about in every
Yeah.
one of our episodes is that wall that we build that's so impenetrable that it becomes our cell. It
Yeah.
becomes our cage.
That's
Like
very true.
that's
That's very
wrong.
true.
That's
Well, I think
like
it's one of those inherent and see, and I've said this in our episodes before. I don't always think all of this is bad. It just depends on the man, the individual, how you can handle
mhm.
stress and how you can handle these things. Bro, like, okay, straight up, you stressed about that getting to the party. I've had stresses like that with things. And now, did that cause you to think about self eradicating or anything like that? Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely
I didn't
not. Right.
never no,
So that's what I'm saying. There's some people that, so what you went through was actually because we had to go across state line and, hours and hours away from where
yeah.
we live and all this kind of stuff. There are people that have to stress, right, as far as what's physically happening, yet they have 4
Mhm.
times the mental anguish from what's going on, and it creates that whole thing, and it just, snowballs on them, depending on what their
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
is, and who's to say, you know, whose problems are worse than others or whatever, right? So, I mean,
I mean, clearly there's problems that are worse than
yeah,
ours. I
absolutely.
mean, when I'm talking about a party.
Yeah,
There's other problems about paying rent or about which
right,
we've all had. That was just one
right.
example. We've all had issues
Yep,
of financial issues or relationship issues or whatever the case is, but we've also been blessed to have outlets, like yours and my friendship has always been a very stable um thing in our relationship, right? And in my lifetime, that's like one of the only stable things that I've had. So when you're talking about relations with women, very unstable, because we're either leaps and bounds ahead of them, or they're is just doesn't
right.
fit. You know what I mean? So we just, but we're never at that level. And I get what you're saying. We're never at that level of that self eradication of like that's it. Now, have there been times in my life where I fit in that 14% category of Mexicans or whatever it was,
Thinking about it,
of
yeah,
the thought of it? Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone's thought about it
probably, yeah,
once in their life, whether it was just
right,
an instant reaction or a thought or a whatever. Clearly no
right,
follow through.
right.
But have I thought about it? Yeah, absolutely. There was very low times in my life that have happened, and that was like, oh my god, man, that would solve all the problems of the world. but it wouldn't. It would solve my problem.
And it
You
really
know what I
doesn't
mean? It would
solve your
solve
problem, it just
me.
washes them away, you know?
It just neutralizes your feeling
Yeah.
of that problem. So basically, it's just another
Mhm.
method of running
Yeah.
away from that
And
problem,
that's what it is,
right?
it's running away from issues, you know? And the thing is,
exactly.
what's hard about it for me to think about is that guys typically versus females look at things on on a more emotional basis, like, "How does this
Mhm.
situation make me feel?"
They were their
Where
emotions.
guys think things more on a practical, right? I don't want to use
Hmm.
logical because women are logical too, but
Or logic.
a more
Yeah.
of a practical scale. However, that
Hmm.
practicalness can get so overwhelming that it becomes emotional to us. And the thing is the reason I kind of wanted to bring up that whole party thing is that, so just like us as males, the reason you didn't want them to worry is we want to protect our women. And then that extends out to our friends and people coworkers and everything. And as guys, we really want to not burden other people with we're already burdened. I already have this stack of bricks I got to do something with. You can't help me with this stack of bricks. Why am I going to make you worry about the stack of bricks too? And this is the thing. People at, at jobs and everything else, who's the people that you try to avoid at work? The ones that always have an issue. They always come up to you. Oh, yeah. Yesterday I went home and oh my God, what a terrible day it was. And
The
Debbie
Debbie
Downers,
Downers.
man, all day long, talking about how
Yeah.
lousy their home life is and how they hate their job and everything else. And it's like, I don't want to hear you're not. I got my
God,
whole
those
world of
people.
nonsense that I don't burden you with. Please don't burden me with yours. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the people we love, our especially our women in our lives, we want them to throw those bricks on our pile, right? We're going to take those on,
Oh yeah, we'd rather
even
carry
though
them. Oh
we're
yeah.
like, oh man, I don't know if I can carry anymore. You've said this in past episodes. That's what we're here for. And we should be stronger because we shouldn't break down emotionally easier. We're supposed to be a little bit heftier in that way. And again, I think one of the key things, one is that everybody's different, right? So people have a different amount of stress that they can take on and hold and all that kind of stuff. And I really believe this, and I've read up a bunch on different psychologists and everything. Since feminism, right, the rise in feminism since like the 60s 70s was the big kind of kick into it, and then the 80s really moved on. Those women have been raising boys by themselves, and they have instilled that into their boys, and their boys are now,
Yeah.
have a more and there's nothing wrong with a guy being in touch with this feminine side. However, they've lost a lot of that
Yeah.
strength that they really need to survive in this society. And this is why we see these numbers going up in these, young men, whatever age category they fall into, is that they don't have the strength from a strong father that, like you and I, beat the crap out of us and everything. And so nowadays, when somebody brings me some little hangnail story, I'm like, what is that? But I'll give them a
Yeah.
hug or coddle them or whatever needs to be done.
Or fruit basket.
Fruit basket. Send them a what the heck are those? those those really good those,
Edibles.
yeah, the
Oh wait, no,
edibles,
that's a
yeah.
drug. Not the edible guys. The
Yeah, the
the
fruit
fruit
edibles.
edibles. Come
Yeah.
on.
Hey, I
Come
love
on
those
now. You
things.
know what I'm
I'm
talking about.
stressed every day. You guys can send those to me, okay?
You said,
I love those, man.
but you know what? You know what? And here's the thing about men. Even in that self eradication, they're still thinking about their loved ones. Some, not all. Some are like, you know what? I'm better off. Clearly, it's their thinking is off, but their thought is still in that men's state of I'm helping them out because you know what? I'm better off
Mhm.
gone than here. They at least have my insurance money, or I'm gonna, they go out, they'll have an excuse. Trust me, it's the worst thing to do. Don't do it. You're not helping nobody. In fact, you're making it worse for the people that are left behind. So never should be an option. But that is a thing. Even now, Jay, how far do we? I live 4 hours, 4.5 hours away from my ex, And even now I worry like, "Hey, are you okay? What do you need? Something
Right.
wrong with the house? Let me know. I'll go out there fix it." Because I don't want her to have to struggle with
Right.
things like that. That's the mother of my children, and I'm not going to sit there and allow for her to be dependent on somebody that opens her up to possibly getting ripped off or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? And but that's our role as men, right? We have this role like, no, 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 you come to me, I will fix the world. And yet, who do we go to fix our world? Nobody,
Right.
right? We just take it on and we keep taking it, piling up, piling up, piling up, always trying to find a way. And do we find ways out? Yes, here and there we find little escapes. We find a little bit of relief here. Okay, I took care of that problem. Now I got to work on this one and blah blah blah. But we eventually end up drowning in our own efforts to help others, right? Or the people that we love, because we have no outlet. At one point we have to step back and say, hold up, let me get this done first before I could take on any more. And that's what we're, as men, we don't do. We just
Yep.
keep taking it on because we don't want anybody, because at the moment we say, "Hey," that's a moment of weakness
Hmm.
for us. That's like, "Oh, what, you can't handle that?" It's just a little, that's how you
Yep.
look at it. And you want to be like, nah, okay, you know what? You're right. I'll take it. All right, you got me. Yeah, yeah. And what do we say? All right, you got me at a moment of weakness. I'll take it. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. But we keep taking on more
Yep.
and more and more. And we never cease to take a moment for
Ha-
ourselves and like, let me breathe. Because that's not
That's right.
masculine.
How
That's not
many
a
ladies
man.
are out
You
there
know what I
right
mean?
now that have a man, or whether it's married or a guy you've been with for a long time, and you guys have talked about some kind of project that he's going to work on? He's going to build a shed in the back. He's going to do something, fix a leaky faucet, whatever. And it's 3, 6 months, a year has went by, and that project is either not started or it's still in the process, not completed, something like that. I'm sure everybody would say, "Oh yeah, I remember that happened. Yeah, I kept bugging him." The thing is again, he didn't, exactly what Joe just said. He didn't want to say no. He wants
Hmm.
to, but there's so many other things that he's got to get done. And I know for myself, I mean, coming, get home from work, we do this or whatever, and then go to bed, get up for work the next day. And then the next day I got to meet with, somebody from church or something. And then it's time to, come home and go to bed again. And it's like this cycle of, there's never time. I mean, and then
Yeah.
it's like, when do you do laundry and all that kind of stuff? You got to find time for just those basic things. And so for me, like a lot of that stuff, I put it in at night, get up early in the morning, change, put it in the dryer or whatever. And it's like, I'm ironing clothes for work, and getting stuff out of the dryer and everything. And it's a constant, you're never ending. It's never, you know, and then when anybody will come over, "Oh, why isn't that done?" or whatever. It's like, dude, you don't know how many things that I've been
You
do-
just want to punch him
doing.
in the face.
That is kind of low on the totem pole as far as things that I'm going to get done this week. I'm going to drop the ball on something, and I choose what I'm dropping the ball on, and that's it. I don't care about that right now.
I'm I remember when my I was with my ex, and she told me like, "Hey, I really want to put some lights here, some can lights here, and maybe here, but then I need this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I could do it." And she's all, "Okay." And but like, I had to work. So I worked still. I had to do the yard. I got to skim the pool. There's always things at home that you're doing,
Always.
right? The garage, like the garage, for some reason, like every week, it was like, how did this get like this again? And you have to pull everything out of the garage and clean and sweep it. I'm very meticulous when it comes to like garage. I don't like having a dirty garage or a
Yeah, I
dusty
don't either.
garage. So you had to take everything out, clean it, put everything back up. Reorganize it, because your loved one likes to just go out there and throw things in there. And I'm like, it's not a storage bin, it's a garage, right? And everything has this place, right? And then finally she's like, I really would like to have those lights up. And I'm like, okay. And I did it. And you know how hard it is to do can lights. Is not like cut a hole, put it in, you're done. You got to run wires. You got to put circuits in. You got to put switches in. You got to, if it's going to be a three way, you
Right.
got to, there's a little bit of work in there, right? And
There's
when
a
she
lot of
saw
work in
that,
a
and then I
three-way.
had a
So
Oh, and then I had to put a plug in for a TV that we're gonna mount on over the mantle. There was just so much work. And when I actually did it, and she saw these holes, wires sticking out, all these things, she's all me going running in the attic and running out. She's all, I didn't know it was gonna be that much. I'm like, what do you think? It's just like cut a hole, put up light, nah, it just magically turns on. I go, how are you gonna control it? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to it. It's not just like she goes, well, I didn't know it was that much work. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot of work, and she realized that, okay, I'm not gonna ask you to do
Yeah.
that again, right? Because it's just a lot to do. And I said, look, I could do it, but not at the time frames you give me. I'm going to do when I can. I go, because there's all these other things that you want me to do. And she's like, yeah, I didn't realize it was that much work into it. I'm like,
Yeah.
most people don't. Most people, it's easy to just
Right.
point and say, I want a light right there. You don't know
You
how that
don't.
light gets there, or how hard it is to get there, how you have to sit in a hot attic drilling holes through headers to try to get wires through. There's a lot of work to it.
Yeah.
It's not just put a
Yeah.
light up and it magically turns on, with the Holy
Right.
Spirit. No,
Yeah.
he's
Are you, I
busy,
mean, are you, did you put a new
So
circuit in the, in your, your box? Did you have to put a new one in? Did you tap into some? Then at that point, you got to find
I cheated. I just
an
tapped into
existing.
a constant hot
Yeah.
plug, right? And then I got a feed off of that, put it into a switch,
Yeah.
and boom, we had
And
lights.
now
And
nowadays,
they were low
yeah,
voltage
and
lights.
I was just gonna say that nowadays that kind of
Yeah,
stuff is a lot easier for us because LED, low voltage, all those kind of things. Back in the day, if you were running new
yeah.
halogen stuff, dude, you had to run a new circuit because I mean, you'd if you ran that
Oh
off of something
yeah,
that was already had, halogen or whatever. Yeah, and same thing happened to me. I was at a this lady manager, and she had put I was over operations and IT and all that, and she was like, hey, we really need two terminals out on our floor, for computers and all that for our sales folks and everything. I was like, yeah, no problem, no problem. Where do you want them at? And she showed me, and I said, you realize this is like in the middle of the floor. There's no electrical, there's no data, there's no nothing. And back then we weren't running stuff Wi-Fi, everything was hardwired in. And she was like, oh,
yeah.
well, that's, I mean, whatever, so we could run the data in-house, but we weren't licensed electricians, so we had to have our electric company come out. And the guy that normally worked with me, he's like, yeah, I'll run, EMT over here, the conduit and everything down. And he's like, but there's no pole. Do you want it? I said, let's just put a quad in the ceiling, and then we'll put one of those curly cues, that comes down like the medical grade extension cord, and run that down. And that bill came back for just doing that because they had to run a new circuit and everything. And she was like, it's gonna cost that much to do that? I'm like, yeah, what do you want, like, something in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, what did you think? Exactly what you said, man. What did you think? It's gonna just like magically the elves are gonna build the little house and cookies here and it's just gonna be all good? Yeah,
Magic.
magic,
Yeah,
magic dust. So yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
crazy. But listen, everybody, if you have any kind of uh, things that are going through your head. We're doing this series because we care about people, and since we started Joe and Jay Outspoken, from day one, on the end of every single one of our episodes, it has phone numbers for their different crisis helplines for all kinds of different things: substance abuse, um, self eradication, everything else in between. We really care about you, so you guys make sure that you utilize resources that are available out there because they are available. And the best resource you have is your friends, your family, and hopefully you're a believer and you go to church
Absolutely.
because that's a wonderful resource to have.
And if you have a topic you want us to talk about regarding men's mental health or anything like that, that maybe you want to see what everybody else thinks about, shoot us, drop us a line, drop us an email, let us know, and we'll bring it up and talk about it and see what everybody
Yeah.
else thinks, and we'll definitely give you our opinion and maybe examples of what we went through, because again, this is based on just things that we've lived and that we've come across in our lives, and I'd like to think that we're men and we've suffered some of these things. So um
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely, man. I think that again, you have
Yep.
outlets. There's not only one. You
Yep.
always have outlets.
And
So remember that.
if it
Don't
comes
give up.
down to it, 988, that's the number you call to talk to somebody live on the phone 24 hours a day. So anyhow,
Yeah. And if you don't remember, dial
yeah,
911.
they
They'll
will.
transfer you.
Yep, they'll transfer you directly. So don't
Hmm.
forget, every mid-month Wednesday we do Outspoken Men's Edition here, and then we have a regular scheduled programming that we do every Tuesday. Yep,
Every Tuesday.
Joe and Jay
Yeah.
Outspoken, and yeah, you can find all of our stuff at Linktree/Joe and Jay Outspoken. All right, everybody, stay blessed and have a great week.